Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. The centre has announced a Diwali bonanza for railway employees after the cabinet has approved a productivity-linked bonus equivalent to 78 days worth of wages to eligible non-gazetted employees within the Indian Railways. The decision would benefit track maintainers, loco pilots, station masters, supervisors, and of course technicians, amongst others. Meanwhile, after 10 years of the enforcement of the Companies Act 2013, 1 in every 5 board members on average in a nifty 500 company is a woman in Bharat. 5 years ago, 1 in 8 directors was a woman, and 10 years ago the proportion was 1 among 20 members. The laws made it mandatory for companies to have at least 1 woman director on their boards. Madhya Pradesh, which goes to polls next month, is going to be seeing some really high-tech campaign tools, and that too will be put to use by the BJP, which is set to use 30 high-tech chariots during this election campaign in the run-up to the polls. 50,000 chariot meetings are being planned in the state, and they will be equipped with LED lights to display the BJP's promises and vision over the next 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to now set up the big story, and the big story is very, very close to home. And it is about the big betting scam. A 5,000 crore scam is currently under the investigation by the Enforcement Directorate for deceiving, duping and also looting gullible youth. They did this through Havala operators, and the belief is that they are culpable as far as the central agency is concerned. The Mahadev app provided platforms for illegal betting in live games such as poker, other card games. The Mahadev betting app scandal has actually blown the lid of many online betting applications that are enticing people to bet money and get drawn and sucked into a mountain of debt. CNN News 18 continues to investigate how this racket has been running for years without being detected. Our investigation has revealed a murky web of bank accounts, crores worth of property, and a network that spans many nations. Now, before we get to this or how this operation actually worked, hear the testimony of how these app makers and promoters preyed on those that are vulnerable, what their modus operandi was, and listen to it from someone who's actually suffered because of this app.
तो वो लोगों ने बोला मेरे को मैक्स विन 19 करके हो तो डिपॉजिट करना पड़ेगा। डिपॉजिट करने के बाद आपको 70% पैसा मिलता है हर गेम के ऊपर। समझो मैंने 1 लाख रुपए किया तो 1 लाख को 70% बोला तो मेरे को कम से कम 70,000 रुपए मिलेगा। हाँ, ऐसा मेरा 1.5-2 लाख के ऊपर ऐसा गया है गेम के ऊपर। मैंने उनको डिपॉजिट भी कर दिया, फिर उसके बारे में मेरे को किसी ने मेरा कॉल नहीं रिसीव किया, कुछ नहीं किया, मेरा पैसा भी गया, मेरे को वापस मिला भी नहीं।
राजस्थान कोटा का एक लड़का था, ये ग्रुप में फ्री फायर खेल रहे थे, तो उसकी वजह से कहने जैसे वो लड़के ने हमारी बिटिया को ब्लैकमेल, इमोशनल ब्लैकमेल किया और धमकाने के बाद में उन्होंने नागाड़ा वीडियो बनाने के लिए बोला और वो नागाड़ा वीडियो बनाया उसका।
Now that was just a snippet of what hundreds of victims have actually gone through, not knowing what hit them when they started losing money on the app. We'll be joined by one such person in just a few minutes. But first, let us take you through this entire scale of the scam. The Enforcement Directorate's investigation in the Mahadev app has pointed to the scam amounting to close to 5,000 crore rupees. So far, 75 FIRs have been registered in the case in just 3 to 4 districts of Chhattisgarh itself. As many as 50 corporate accounts and 10,000 saving accounts have been used by the accused to hide this entire money trail. It was an operation that was run by over 400 people at least, and all of whom are behind bars currently, and there are many more links that are still under investigation. Thousands of bank accounts have been frozen till date to ensure that the app does not make any more illicit money. Now, all this has actually come to light when the Lavish wedding was held in February earlier this year, and this wedding was held in Dubai. Saurabh Chandrakar, he is believed to have spent around 250 crore rupees on his wedding in Dubai. Event organizers were sourced from Mumbai and Delhi for this. And for this, large amounts of cash was allegedly paid through Havala channels to the Indian event management companies for execution of this entire event. Now, during their investigation, the ED has actually found out that the total budget for the execution of the marriage ceremony, apart from boarding, lodging, travel and artist celebrity expenses, was over 112 crore rupees, out of which total payments that were made were around 106.5 crore rupees. On being asked about the utilization of 106.5 crore, one of the accused pointed to a spend of 46 crore plus to vendors and suppliers in Dubai. Approximately 40 crore rupees were received by this accused in India, which included his commission of 6.5 crores and payment made to vendors in India. 19 crore were allegedly paid to vendors for sound, lighting and the set for this wedding. How did the app promoters and the owners then amass such wealth without coming under the radar or being tracked by, or even manage to launder this money across our borders? Now, here's how. A Kolkata-based Vikas Chaparia allegedly handled the Havala operation. Investments in stock market were done via foreign portfolios to park the money. Rapid Travels was an agency employed by this app which was in charge of ticketing operations. The ED believes private jets were actually used for Mahadev app's owner Saurabh Chandrakar's wedding. Wedding planners, dancers, decorators were hired for app events and for promotions. The ED is also probing alleged cash payments that have been made to these performers. These transactions were allegedly made in the name of Messrs. R1 Events Private Limited. That's what's happened. Now, it's a multi-country operation that has tentacles spread far and wide, ladies and gentlemen. The operation, as per the Enforcement Directorate, is mapped across multiple nations and multiple locations. So they've actually mapped these locations where the operations ran. In the UAE, as per the ED, this is said to be the Mahadev betting app's central head office. Then to India in Chhattisgarh, and as per the ED, 2 men who hail from Bhilai in Chhattisgarh allegedly funneled Havala money via this state. Then you have locations in Mumbai, Pune, Raipur, Bhopal, Kolkata. These are locations in India where the app's panel operators are working. Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka are other places where the app's betting is on and the betting app is actually active. And that brings us to the big question on our first story. How did the system not know?
Hello, Moto.
Is a stricter law the only deterrent? Kanish Gaur, cyber expert with us, Anand Ranganathan, author, analyst, and somebody who's watching all around us very close. So, you bet on it is a term, Anand Ranganathan, but there are entities who have actually made 5,000 crores out of it and looted gullible people.
Good evening, Anand. Thank you very much for having me on the panel. There are 2 issues here. One is the immediacy and the immediate repercussions and the whole scam that has unfolded right before our eyes, and I'd like to spend a minute on that. And the other is possibly a little bit more broader point that I'll like to make, that why these scams actually happen and should betting be universally legalized in this country. These are the 2 points I think that are important for us and our viewers to talk about. On number 1, you're absolutely right. How on earth can more than 6,000 crores be scammed? Not just scammed. You look at the modus operandi. This gentleman who is in the net now was a juice vendor. in Chhattisgarh. He had his marriage done and he spent 200 crores in UAE. That is how the whole thing unfolded, and that was his undoing, because people then, ED and other agencies, came to know that there are I think more than a dozen film stars who went there and basically danced at his wedding, and were paid enormous amount of sums, and now all that money that was paid to the Bollywood stars is supposed to be from this income that he's earned from scam. So that's point number one, that you learn of a 5,000 crore scam through a wedding that has happened. What kind of investigative agencies are we running? Number two, it's not just the fact, Anand, that the scam came to light because of the wedding. I want to ask, this gentleman had actually started more than 2,000 bank accounts. This scamming was actually conducted through these bank accounts of the underprivileged. He got hold of the Aadhaar cards, he got hold of really poor people, and he promised them direct benefit transfers, DBTs. So he was actually scamming the poorest of the poor. And through those bank accounts, he was undertaking the Havala transactions. Now you tell me, you can actually make 2 fuzzy bank accounts or a dozen bank accounts. Can an Indian make suddenly 2,000 fuzzy bank accounts? What is the RBI or any other agency in this country conducting a cross-checking procedure to find out, A, that a 5,000 crore scam happens and a wedding unfolds it, and B, that 2,000 fuzzy bank accounts are opened by a scamster and nobody has a wind of it? So obviously heads must roll. It is not just a question of unearthing this scam, Anand. It's a question of why were no one held responsible for not unearthing it for months on end. And I take you back very briefly to how Nirav Modi finally got caught. Nirav Modi and his scam, Mehul Choksi, they were actually PMO India and the board of registrar of companies were informed months before the scam actually unfolded. No action was taken. So I don't know why in this country you have absolute open and shut cases of scams, and by the time they are unearthed, these scamsters have already escaped. And I think this is a blessing in disguise that he actually returned and he was caught. I don't know why he returned to Mumbai and he was caught. Number two, and this is a larger point, I don't know whether we possibly need another debate for this, Anand, but we have betting legalized in Goa, we have casinos, we have lottery systems in many states. That is how states earn a lot of money. Why is betting universally not accepted or legalized all across India? I really want to know the crux of this issue. Do some states feel that they are morally or ethically more superior, or that betting is bad or gambling is bad? If there was universally legalized betting and gambling, such kind of illegal things would not happen.
You make some very strong points there. The other aspect is 5,000 crores of cash that is doing the rounds via Havala in a post-demonetization era where they're saying that every bank road has been tracked and we've got billions of transactions via UPI or digital transactions that are going on. Kanishk Kaur, the details that stem are so shocking, and sometimes they force you to think that, like Anand Ranganathan was saying, 2 juice vendors sitting in Dubai are running such a big racket. ऐसे तो बहुत सारे माहिर लोग हैं इस देश के अंदर, तो कितने करोड़ का घपला चल रहा है और कितने करोड़ का हवाला यहाँ पे चल रहा है, and that too, and how are these processes going undetected? How could so many people be fooled? How could banks allow so many furji accounts to be opened? And this is not the first time we're talking about furji accounts or this kind of scam. Even with what happened with the minority institutions and the scholarships that we unearthed, that exclusive that we put out at CNN News 18, it was shocking that even on a dipstick study done by the NCAER, we saw nearly 600 furji institutions that were drawing benefits, and they had all got valid bank accounts. This is a huge issue.
And sorry to interrupt, I didn't mean to interrupt here.
This is a huge issue, Anand. One of the key
Kanishk, Anand Ranganathan just wanted to interrupt a small intervention and then I'll get you to speak. Yes, Anand.
Sure.
My apologies, Kanishk. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just remembered, small mercies, Anand, and thank God that Mahadev is not on the jersey of the Indian cricket players who are playing in the World Cup. It very well could be. You remember the other scams from Sahara?
Yeah.
Sahara was sponsoring the Indian cricket team. So we are just lucky that it is not Mahadev splashed all over the Indian cricket jersey.
No, not just India. Yes, cricket jersey, small mercies, but splashed over a lot of places for a lot of things. It could have happened, and that's dangerous. And there are a few nami ginami people who have actually gone for this wedding, and how they've received their money and whether they've declared that income is also under the scanner. But Kanishk, yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues is we did not have any law which would differentiate between gambling and gaming. So a lot of these companies were operating under the gambit of gaming. That was one of the key issues which we typically saw. The other thing which we have seen is a lot of these apps take permissions from users without informing them. So the safety features, the functionalities, that have to be clearly tested. So if you download any app like this, the kind of permissions they were taking from people, right from accessing people in their contact list to accessing, the data that is there, even recording some of their conversations, morphing their images to blackmail them. So those have been big issues. So particularly on, Play stores, one needs to have recurring security mechanisms so apps like this do not exist. So today, this is one Mahadev app. There could be plenty of such apps. And Anand, we have spoken. There are a lot of these Chinese apps which still continue to operate and lure people into making tremendous amount of money and then blackmail them, which have run havoc. So Mahadev is one tipping point, and which we have found out because there is a 200 crore spent on a wedding. Look at other apps which are still operating. So what the government needs to do is run a mandate to look at apps which are causing safety concerns for end users and then blocklist and blacklist them. We have looked at only Chinese companies. There are multiple companies which are operating such operandis.
If there is a legalized system, what happens is if there is a legalized system, there is KYC, there is a filter where you can say that you can only bet about 10% or 15% of your bank balance. You cannot draw an overdraft. You're not allowed to do anything other than link directly to your bank balance. There is a GST mechanism that comes into play, and there is accountability. And you can have certain benchmarks and protection to people. See, this is the game of skill versus game of chance argument continues. In this case, people who are willing to bet, what happens is families are destroyed. Look at the kind of arm twisting that's been done. Some of the victims' versions that we have, Anand Ranganathan, is shocking. That they have threatened women, they've threatened families, they've they've actually mined their entire social media profiles and tried to shame them and try to really hook them. And this was yes, the rule in a casino or anywhere in gambling is the house always wins. But in this case, it was designed for the user or the bettor to lose. That's how big the scam was.
Yes, and I think, I'm certainly not speaking for these scamsters, absolutely not. But can I just say that they were rank amateurs, not only because they did not involve any politician, not only because they conducted a wedding so soon after they started the app and they spent 200 crores so got into the eye of the agency, but finally, for having opened 2,000 bank accounts. I mean, the daring itself is astonishing. When you talk about Anand, let's look at you talked about demonetization. Now, why were bank accounts important then? Bank accounts were important because all the black money was actually channelized through the Jan Dhan account, which the rich deposited their money, black money, into these accounts, and that is how they did the Havala transaction. Now, but that was 7 years ago, 2016. After that, India has seen an unbelievable digital revolution where most of the transactions that are happening, billions and billions of them, are happening digitally. So how on earth can this be evaded from the agencies and the RBI's eye that you have more than 2,000 bank accounts opened by two people? Right. It beggars belief, Anand.
It is, and sometimes these banks don't get accounted for. Those people who opened these accounts are still operating. They are still functioning. A suspension or a transfer or just a red flag does not help. It's criminal offense that you're doing because you're opening people and society to being defrauded. So that check also has to happen. We've just got one of the victims of and who are one of the complainants on the phone line, gentlemen. So quickly going across to them. Namaste. अब मेरा नाम आनंद है, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी
जी, आप जरा मुझे बताएंगे कि आपके साथ, आपके परिवार के साथ क्या हुआ था इस महादेव ऐप के साथ?
तो ये सर जी, राजस्थान कोटा से एक लड़के ने फ्री फायर गेम का, वो फ्री फायर गेम था ना,
हाँ हाँ
वो बच्चे लोग कहने जैसे 12 साल के 13 साल के बच्चे लोग ये फ्री फायर गेम खेल रहे थे।
हाँ
तो फ्री फायर गेम खेलते खेलते ये वो बन गए, जॉइंट ग्रुप बन गए इनका, और इनका ग्रुप बनने से कहने जैसे उन बच्ची लोगों को पैसे मांगते थे, 2200 रुपये दो, 2000 रुपये दो, हम फ्री फायर गेम आपको और सिखाएंगे, इससे ज्यादा प्राइज मिलता है, ये मिलता है, ऐसे कुछ वो लॉलीपॉप दे रहे थे बच्चे लोग। तो इसमें बच्चे लोगों ने क्या किया, हमारे बस्ती में 5-6 बच्चे थे, उस ग्रुप में ज्वाइन हो गए, और ज्वाइन होते होते मेरी बच्ची भी उसमें छपड़ गई। 12 साल की बच्ची थी, तो 12 साल की बच्ची वो जैसे 7 में थी, तो उसमें उसको कहने उस राजस्थान कोटा से एक लड़का था, और उसने कहने उस बच्ची को बोला, जैसे 15 दिन हो गए वो खेल रही थी, तो 15 दिन में उन्होंने कैप्चर किया। और कैप्चर करने के बाद हम घर में नहीं थे, तो बच्ची कोरोना के वजह से कहने हमने उनको फोन दिए थे पढ़ाई के लिए। तो वो बच्ची फ्री फायर गेम खेल रही थी, तो उसको कहने धमकी मिली, वो राजस्थान कोटा से लड़का शाहजी करके लड़का है, तो उसको धमकी दिया, उसको पहले बाथरूम में भेजा और नागाड़ा फोटो निकाला उसका स्क्रीनशॉट से जी, और नागाड़ा फोटो निकाल के उस बच्ची को ब्लैकमेल कर रहे थे। 12 साल की बच्ची थी वो जी। तो बच्ची को इमोशनल ब्लैकमेल करके 2200 रुपये 2300 रुपये मेरा अकाउंट नंबर मांगा, मम्मी का मांगा अकाउंट नंबर, अकाउंट नंबर में वो पैसे भेज दो। तो ये हमको पता ही नहीं था 2 दिन। तो उस बच्चे ने, जैसे मेरे बच्ची के साथ में जो बच्चे लोग थे, दो लड़कियां थी, 13 साल की और 12 साल के 2 बच्चे थे जी। तो वो बच्चे के साथ में भी वो लड़का खेल रहा था, वो 18 साल का लड़का था। तो 18 साल का लड़का था, तो उन्होंने कहीं उस लड़के के मोबाइल पे वो नागाड़ा वीडियो भेजा जी। तो वो बच्चे ने वो थोड़े से घबरा गए, वो बच्चे घबराने के बाद में उसके मम्मी को वो बताया, उसकी मम्मी ने फिर मेरी मिसेस को बताया कि ऐसी बात हो गई जी। तो हम बिना हटे बिना ये रूठे, हम टेंशन में नहीं है, हम सीधा क्योंकि बच्चे लोगों के ऊपर और किसी के ऊपर अगर किसी को ऐसा हादसा होने को नहीं होना तो इसलिए मैं सीधा साइबर ऑफिस गया। साइबर ऑफिस में मेरे को केशव वाघ जी सर मिले, उन्होंने वो देखा तो उसका भी दिमाग खराब हो गया, तो उन्होंने सीधा फाइल बनाई, रिपोर्ट बनाई और उल्केश्वर थाने में वो रिपोर्ट भेज दी जी। तो सर जी को बोला ये आपके लिए, सामने के लिए अच्छा है कि बुरा है? मैं बोला ये बच्चे के ऊपर आजू बाजू में या बस्ती में या शहर में किसी के साथ में ऐसा हादसा होने को नहीं होना जी। मैं ये पैर पीछे लेने वाला नहीं हूँ, मैं ये पैर अपना सीधा सामने चलूंगा और ऐसा असर गिरने को नहीं होना किसी के साथ में जी। किसी के साथ में होने को नहीं होना, इसलिए मैंने ये स्टंट उठाया। और उस लड़के को उल्केश्वर पुलिस थाने में से एक्शन हो गई। एक्शन होने के बाद में राजस्थान कोटा से 15 दिन में वो लड़का आया, मेरे को माफी मांग रहा था, उसकी माँ भी माफी मांग रही थी। बोले हम गरीब है, ये है वो है, वैसे बता रहे थे। उसकी माँ बर्तन धोने के लिए जाती थी। तो मैंने सीधा बोला तुम्हारे बच्चों के पास 15,000 या 20,000 का फोन कैसे आया? गरीब हो ना आप? 15 दिन में छोटे बच्चों के नागाड़े वीडियो बनाने के लिए, दूसरों की जिंदगी खराब करने के लिए आपको सजा मिलनी या नहीं मिलनी है।
बिल्कुल।
मैं पीछे हटने वाला नहीं हूँ।
अच्छा हुआ आपने जो पोजीशन लिया वो आपने लिया, क्योंकि वरना इतना बड़ा स्कैम और ये जो हर जगह जितना व्यापक है वो नहीं होता। मैं आपको धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने जो पोजीशन लिया, और हम ये उम्मीद करते हैं कि और भी ऐसे कड़े कानून बने ताकि आगे जाकर ऐसा वापस ना हो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हमसे बात। जी बोलिए
सर जी, यहाँ से हमारे एरिया में क्या नहीं फ्री फायर नाम की चीजें बंद हो गई। नागपुर जिले में फ्री फायर नाम की चीजें बंद हो गई। बच्चे लोग स्कूल में जाते सब। हमारा अभी 2000 बच्ची का गाँव है कि नहीं
जी,
उसमें कुछ भी नहीं चल रहा, और मैसेज जा रहे कि ऐसा होने से क्या होता है। मेरे को धन्यवाद भी दिया बहुत से लोगों ने मेरे को।
तो हम भी आपको धन्यवाद देते हैं, और ये सिर्फ आपके जिले में और आपके एरिया में नहीं होना चाहिए, पूरे देश भर में हर किसी को जाना चाहिए कि ऐसे ऐप्स के साथ सरोकार ना करें और यहाँ पर अपनी डिटेल्स ना शेयर करें। और सबसे ज्यादा बड़ी बात है कि माँ बाप ये ध्यान रखें जब अपने बच्चों को आप फोन दे रहे हैं, व्हेन यू आर गिविंग देम फोन्स एंड टू बी एबल टू कम्युनिकेट इन टर्म्स ऑफ इमरजेंसी, देन नन ऑफ दीज प्लेटफॉर्म्स शुड बी देयर। यू हैव टू एंश्योर that these kind of platforms are not accessible to those who are vulnerable and who don't know what they're getting into. Thank you very, very much. बहुत धन्यवाद. Anand Ranganathan, please stay on with us, and Kanish Gaur, thank you for your inputs. We're going to shift focus, ladies and gentlemen.